Hi. So, as we near more serious development of our first major essay for the class, I wanted to stop and talk about the writing process and give you an opportunity to reflect on what your writing process has been like in the past. Maybe you want to make some changes, maybe you want to try some new strategies. So I'm hoping this discussion and reflection activity are useful in that capacity. Okay, so below me, there is an image of the writing process. And so the writing process has a bunch of different steps, but you, most people don't go through them like straight from beginning to end. There's often a lot of like repetition of steps and moving back and forth in the sort of chronology of those steps. But basically, the first one is pre-writing, or it's called brainstorming. There are different words used for it. You may have had previous writing teachers ask you to like free write, just like write for 10 minutes about your topic and, write down anything you know. So it's really an idea gathering stage. And honestly, I include class discussions in the pre-writing process, any reading or research that you do, any activities that you do to sort of process those readings. A lot of people pre-write most effectively through talking with other people. So I do have students who like to talk to their spouse or a friend of theirs or whoever that helps them sort of process their thoughts about the writing prompt that they're trying to approach. And then next up is outlining, and also below me I've linked to it's basically a really general template for an outline for a basic essay, and it's just got a spot for you to put your thesis or your main point at the top, and then places to kind of develop paragraphs where you can put like the main point of the paragraph, the evidence that you're going to use, or the reasoning you're going to use. And so you just kind of do that in shorthand, not in like full sentences. People outline in many, many different ways. Some people write very, very thorough outlines. Some people literally just list topics. So that is totally going to depend on what kind of works for you. But outlines are very important in that they give you a guide when you get to the next step, which is drafting. And drafting is where you just try and write the whole thing. And so you can see the relationship between the two. If you have a decent plan for what you want to write about, then you're less likely to get sort of lost or off track as you draft and actually try and write the paper. Some writing teachers call these rough drafts. Some writing teachers call them shitty drafts because they're usually not of very good quality since they're like this basic first try. The next step is revision. And the last two steps are revision and editing, and a lot of students are sort of confused about the difference between the two. So revision is about making changes to like the core ideas of the paper. So when I'm at a revising stage, I might decide, oh, this section is irrelevant and I have to get rid of something completely. I might move around different paragraphs or different points within a paragraph because I've decided the ordering didn't make sense. I might clarify the transitions between ideas. I might decide I need more evidence or more explanation of a point, and I add that in. So that's where you're really working on developing and extending and clarifying the ideas of the paper, okay? And then the last step is editing, and that's where you're focusing very closely on sentence structures, spelling errors, formatting errors that are related to the formatting style that your teacher has asked you to use for the paper. Later on, when you're writing for whatever job you have, you're going to be trying to get rid of any grammatical errors, making whatever you're writing look polished and be in the appropriate format that, your workplace requires of you. And so, yeah, you don't need to go through all those steps in order. For me, what I do is I don't really have a specific methodology of brainstorming. I think I kind of really jump, outlining is sort of a brainstorming um, session for me. I kind of start listing topics. And then eventually that outline, and I'm usually typing into a Word document, um, I sort of just begin beefing it up. And so I add in quotations um, that are relevant to the different points that I want to make. And then when I'm ready to draft, I just like write around those quotations. And where I may have just had like a single word to represent an idea, I turn that into a topic sentence. And then I go from there to like complete a real draft. But then once I have the draft, I actually go back to the outlining stage, because I don't know about you, but once I have a paper that's like of a decent length, 5, 6, 7 pages long, it's like I can't really remember what's in there. I can't like hold everything that's in the paper in my head. And so from the drafting stage, I actually go back to the outlining stage, and I make a quick outline on I read through the paper. I usually print it out, and I either on a separate piece of paper or just in the margins of that printed draft, I kind of write an outline, like the key points that are being covered in each paragraph. And then I can figure out if there's stuff that I didn't need, if I got off topic, if the organization makes sense, etc. And I make those changes. And then when I am ready to edit the paper, one of my favorite strategies when I have something that really, really needs to be very polished is that I actually read the paper backwards, sentence by sentence. So I start with the last sentence and then I move backwards through the paper. And I make corrections to words I've misspelled, sentence structures that I think sound weird, etc. And that really helps me, going backwards, really helps me focus on the structure of that sentence in isolation instead of in relationship to all the, to the previous ideas, because I find it harder for me to catch errors when I just read from beginning to end. So that's what I do. I hope, just hearing what someone else does is helpful. And below, you're going to hear from, you're going to get to share what your writing process is like and what your goals are for this semester in terms of writing process. And you'll hear from the other class members. So I hope you enjoy the conversation.